Acumatica 2021 R1, there's a new inquiry called dead stock. It's got kind of a morbid name, but you can find it up here on the search bar just by searching for dead stock. You can see it's in the inventory workspace down here under inquiries. Click that and open it up. The first thing you need is a required field for the warehouse. I'll go ahead and go with the wholesale warehouse. And you get an option over here to select by number of days, or you can select by a specific date. And essentially what it's looking for is it's looking for inventory that hasn't been used in a while. In this case, by the default, in the last 30 days. And if we take a tour across the bottom here, we can see there's our wholesale warehouse. The inventory ID, which in this case is an Acer laptop computer. We have 631 in stock. The base unit tells us what the unit of measure is. It's an each in this case. And then this next column here is dead stock quantity. So this is the purpose of this inquiry, to tell you what quantity is dead stock or hasn't been used in a while. So even though we have 631 in stock, we have 464 that we may want to do something with. Maybe they're not going to get used. As we scroll across, we have some further information here. We have the number of days that this 464 quantity has been in the dead stock category. We also have the last time this item was sold. So even though it might have been sold somewhat recently, that just accounts for the difference between the in stock and the dead stock. Then we've got over here the dead stock item average cost, in this case $250. And then it comes up with the total dead stock cost. And just to check the math on that, we can multiply the 464 dead stock quantity multiplied by the 250 average cost to come up with, in this case, $116,000. So this is the amount of inventory that's sitting in inventory that maybe is not going to get used. There's also a couple more informational columns, the last costs, which may or may not be different from the average cost, and the currency that was used for the dollars, US dollars in this case. Now a few more things I wanted to look at. First, the inquiry I think is a great starting point, and I'd love to see Acumatica do more of this kind of thing. Acumatica is really good at building the technology, building the customization engine that they have, the platform that it's built on, really great technology. But I think we're at a point now where we'd like to see more of this kind of thing get introduced into the product. So I've got a few nice to have things that I think would be nice. One is on this total dead stock cost. It's nice that I can see it individually by item. It'd be nice to have a total up on the top, most likely. I did look, if it was a regular generic inquiry, you could add a total to the bottom. If I scroll to the far right here, we'll see there is no total at the very bottom. But I can't do that because this is not actually a generic inquiry. It's a regular custom screen. So it'd be nice to have that total most likely up on the top here, so I can get an idea for the filter criteria that I put in on the top, what that total dead stock cost is that's sitting in my inventory. So that'd be a nice to have. Another thing I think that would be nice, if we come down here and look, I've got this in stock for and no sales for. I think the no sales one makes sense because I can see down here I've got a date of December 24th. I'm right now in June 4th. So if I were to say no sales for 180 days, that line gets erased, which makes sense. So it's only filtering to show me stuff that has not been sold in more than 180 days. So that part I'm fine with. But this in stock for, when I first looked at this, I assumed this meant how long this item has actually been in stock. So maybe it's a new item that never existed in inventory before, and I only want to look at items that have existed in inventory for longer than 30 days. That's what I thought I was looking at. But what's actually happening here is it's actually looking at the in dead stock days. So you can see if I change this to 200 and click out of the field, that Acer laptop disappears because it's been in dead stock for less than 200 days. And I know for a fact that Acer laptop has been in stock for years, so it's not looking at how long it's been in inventory. So I think it'd be nice if they relabeled this to say in dead stock rather than in stock. Another nice to have, I think, would be a little more clarity on this last sale date. I did notice that I did a sample item down here. You can see I got real creative and called it BB computer instead of the AA computer. And this one has 5 in stock, it's got 4 in dead stock, and you can see here it's got a last sale date of May 3rd. And I created these transactions, so I know it's from scratch, and I only created 2 invoices. Now you can see I've got 5 in stock, 4 in dead stock, and if I go up here to the invoices screen, you can see there is that May 3rd invoice. Now this is the invoice that's getting counted, but I actually did an invoice before this, back here, that was actually May 12th. Now you would think that since May 12th is more recent than May 3rd, that should be the last sale date. But it looks like what it's doing is it's only looking at invoices that were generated from sales orders. This May 12th, I just went in and I created the invoice directly in the invoices screen. And then this other one here, I took it all the way from sales order to a shipment to an invoice. So it looks like right now only these get counted in the last sale date. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe that's a bad idea, but I think a nice to have would be a little more clarity around what exactly is happening in this last sale date, maybe some options to include or exclude some additional things. And then the last point I want to make along those same lines is what's actually impacting the dead stock quantity. And I think that's where, when you start to do things like this, creating inquiries, creating things that are very helpful for specific industries, you're going to start to get a lot of questions and a lot of enhancement requests, because it's going to work well for one person, not work well for another person, and they're going to want options to turn things on, turn things off. But this is the way it works so far. And so just another point I noticed on this dead stock quantity, which I thought was interesting. If I go up to the release notes for the dead stock inquiry form, you can see it right here in the regular 2021 R1 release notes. If I scroll down to this area, it tells us what's actually impacting that dead stock quantity. And I thought it was interesting that it actually includes transfers, where it says basically any document that affects the quantity on hand. And I did test that out. If you'll see, I go over here. Actually, before we leave the invoice screen, let me point one other thing out. I also noticed that on this dead stock quantity, if I pick a customer, and let's go back to our Acer laptop. So as of right now, we have 464 in dead stock. Well, if I go back to the invoices and I create a new invoice for that Acer laptop, and let's just do a quantity of 1 to keep it simple. I'll save the invoice and I'll leave it in a balanced state. I'm not going to even release it. If I go back up here and I refresh this, you can see right now I've got 463 in dead stock. It looks like actually it refreshed on its own. So I was at 464, it's now got 463. And if I go delete this invoice and go back up here to dead stock, I'm now back to 464. So I don't even have to release the invoice. I thought that was interesting. And then on the transfers point, if I go in and I create a new inventory transfer, here's where I think this scenario could make sense. Let's say that you're trying to deal with those quantities that are in dead stock, and maybe even create a dead stock bin location. So I'm not even going to transfer between warehouses. I'm just going to transfer within the same warehouse. And let's go ahead and pick that Acer laptop, and we'll transfer it from the current location to, I created a dead stock location. And maybe I'll transfer a quantity of 20. So as soon as I save this transaction and I go back here And we'll go ahead and refresh this. Oh, it looks like I'm still at 464. Wonder why that is. Well, this in case I forgot to take it off hold. So it's still on hold. We'll go ahead and remove the hold. It's now balanced. I go back here and refresh. Oh, I'm still at 464. Well, why is that? Well, I need to go back to the transfer and I need to actually release it. So kind of interesting that an invoice can be in a balanced state and impact the dead stock quantity. A transfer actually has to be released. Now when I go back here, you can see my dead stock quantity goes down from 464 to 444. So kind of interesting. I think it works in this scenario if I have a dead stock bin that I wanted to transfer into. But if I was just moving inventory around and I still wanted it to be on my dead stock radar, then maybe this isn't such a great thing. So I think it's a great starting point, this dead stock inquiry. But as you can see, as you start to drill down into the details, what really impacts last sale date, which impacts the filter up here, what really impacts dead stock quantity, and consequently the dead stock days, which impacts the filter up here. You start to consider, is this really going to work for my business, or maybe I'm going to have to customize the screen further, or maybe it'd be nice if Acumatica introduced some more features around the screen that would allow you to determine how exactly the numbers are getting calculated.